to order. If you'd please all stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome to our June 16th council meeting. Matt, could we start with a roll call?
Councillor Halter.
Here.
West.
Here.
Zadi.
Here.
Shalata.
Here.
Savage.
Here.
Demas.
Here.
Tate.
Here.
Mayor Como.
Here, councilors, first order of business. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the city council meeting of June 2nd, 2020.
So moved, Your Honor.
We do have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second has been called. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. This is going to bring us right into the fun part of the agenda, and that's our appointments to fill the open seat in Ward 3. And this is how this is going to work. Each of the candidates will be allowed a 5-minute presentation to the city council. Afterwards, the city council will have some time for Q&A. The candidates that are not up at that time will remain in the lobby and refrain from using their phones and social media until they're called in. After which, everyone will be called in. We'll receive nominations for filling the seat, and a vote will be taken. And if in fact, because there's now 8, if we tie up the vote, we'll take a second vote. If we tie up that vote, we'll take a third vote. And if we tie up that vote, we could be flipping a coin. I'm not quite sure, but
George Washington.
yeah, that's how it'll take place. And then at the end, the Honorable Judge Nelson will be here. He's in the back to issue the oath of office. So with that, we'll start out with Larry Hickerson and Mr. Green and Mr. Smith. If you could remove yourself from the council chambers to the lobby, remain off your phones, and the monitor will be turned off in the lobby. And we'll begin with Mr. Hickerson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're on? Okay. Well, good evening, council members, Mayor Como, everybody else. What I just handed you had my letter of support from Solvay Chemicals, along with a couple of reference letters. As we heard, I'm Larry Hickerson. I'm a Rock Springs native from a family who's made their home here for the past 6 generations. I'm an underground miner at Solvay Chemicals, and I've worked there for the past 14 years. In addition to that, I also co-own Square State Brewing, which is located right downtown here. I have 3 children from 14 to 7, all of whom take part in many of the activities made possible by living in a town like Rock Springs. Woo! I have been a member of Solvay's mine rescue team since 2010, and I am currently the co-captain and benchman for that team. I also hold both my mine foreman and mine fire boss papers. I feel my experience in mine rescue has helped me learn a great deal about leadership, balancing available resources, and how to manage effectively in a high-pressure environment. These are skills I believe would help me bring value to the Rock Springs Council. As an owner of Square State Brewing, I've been able to see firsthand what it takes to make a business work in both good and bad market conditions. As a small business, our brewing company has partnered with many other companies and foundations to help raise money for charitable organizations. During the recent shutdown, driven by the COVID-19 pandemic, Square State, like most businesses, was forced to modify our operating strategy in order to stay profitable, protect our workforce, our customers, and keep all of our full-time staff working. During that time, we're still lucky enough to be able to help some of the less fortunate members of the community. On a personal level, I have been an active member in our community by coaching Little League sports with football and baseball, and I feel my experiences in business, personal, and family life have helped me to develop the skills, ingenuity, resilience, and passion for the things I care about to help deal with the challenges and opportunities our city will face in the future. Some of the things I would like to accomplish if I were chosen as a member of the council is to grow the downtown URA with the hope of it becoming a self-sustaining entity similar to the LEADS program down in Cheyenne. I would like to see the downtown buildings that are vacant right now filled with businesses and treat some of them ones like we are the old First Security Bank building project. When we do that kind of stuff, I'd like to see the local contractors get the first option at local work. I feel the downtown area is the lifeblood of any city. I think if we can develop our downtown area, the entire city will see the benefits of it. I think we need to work on the continued phases of the Bitter Creek project, and I'd be willing to work with state legislators to secure funding to accomplish that work, much like we did phase 1. I will work diligently to find other sources of revenue in an effort to make up for the loss of mineral taxes while trying to keep from unduly increasing the tax burden on the citizens of Rock Springs. In closing, I just want to say that I do love Rock Springs. I've chosen to raise my family here with the hope that my children might have the same chances to enjoy the opportunities and amenities that provide the quality of life I've been fortunate enough to have. I look forward to working with the mayor, council members, city directors, state legislators, and citizens to continue to help the city of Rock Springs grow in the future. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you this evening, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I believe you hit it right on the time mark. Mr. Hickerson, councilors, any questions?
Your Honor.
Councilman West?
Thanks, Larry. Appreciate you getting involved in this process. I was just curious if you've looked into the budget. It's in our packet tonight that we're looking to approve, and if you've got any.
Not.
Okay. Never mind. That was a two-part question, but you had mentioned that another question. Then you want to see some developments in the downtown. Do you have any other ideas as far as put money constraints aside, obviously, and ideas for your ward or the city in general that you'd like to see accomplished, or
just anything we can do to diversify it, try to get us off of the boom and bust cycle, try to bring in a bigger restaurant chain if we can, or anything we can do helps. There's a couple things I'd like to see with the tapping fee, maybe change it to a occupancy based, try to get some of these small business owners a little more leeway to grow their business, much like the Park Hotel. They're trying to do condos there, but the tapping fee is kind of a big restraint on them right now.
Okay, thank you.
Councilors?
Your Honor.
Your Honor.
Councilman Halter first, and then Shalata.
Hey, Larry.
How you doing?
What do you feel is the biggest challenge being on city council? I know you're running also for the 4-year term, so what would be your vision for the next 4 years as far as being able to help the community turn around financially? I mean, with the way industry is falling apart, what are your ideas of economic development and helping with the tax base in this county?
Well, I'm a big fan of term limits, so 40 years is a big draw for me. I'd probably settle for 2 terms, but I'd like to talk to bigger businesses that are up and coming, not necessarily computers or anything, but Austin worked real hard to get Tesla down there. That looks like it's going to be a done deal. Give thousands of people work. I know Bear Pharmaceuticals is looking for another place to operate, stuff like that, try to bring in larger jobs. I know small business is the backbone of the community, but try to get some of the big kids too.
Councilman Shalata?
Oh, I would just, hey, thank you, Larry, for stepping up. We appreciate that. I'd like to know your feelings on the 6 penny issue. If you're...
I think the way it's been
Go
gone
ahead.
about, it's been pretty solid, making sure we need the project instead of just trying to scrape that money together for something that might be deemed frivolous later on. I'm a fan of it, but I
you want to
agree,
be
you gotta
a
be.
little more specific? Do you like infrastructure? Or
I would say infrastructure. I don't know if we can't get that SLIB money for the next phases of the Bitter Creek project, maybe put some of it toward that.
Yeah,
I can't
thank you.
remember what I read, like 580 acres is in a floodplain, right? Something around there.
Okay, yeah.
So that's a lot of constituents for all of us to worry about and try to mitigate all that.
Mr. Hickerson, first off, yeah, I commend you for stepping up and trying to make a difference in Rock Springs. One of the questions I would have, and you already answered one of my questions that Councilman Halter asked, but what changes would you like to see occur, and what would be your number one priority citywide and within Ward 3?
I'm not thinking I'd do so many changes as just increase support for the URA. When we were opening Square State, we worked directly with Chad. He helped us find our building. It was very important to us to be downtown. Thought that we could help it, and I'd just like to see, I think the way downtown goes is the way the city goes. So if it's increasing in value, the rest of the city will.
And then a follow-up question. The city council has numerous boards and committees which each and every one of these councilors represent. I'm not quite sure if you're familiar with these committees or not, but I always like to get an idea of what committees may interest you. And I'm just going to name just a few in the work that you would be doing as councilors, and just let me know what your thoughts are, which one would be important to you, and that you'd be willing to serve on. We have Parks and Rec, garbage, visual improvements, public safety, water and sewer, fiber optics, snow and weed, municipal court, the ever-important Christmas committee, policy committee, buildings, Chamber of Commerce, legislative, sick leave, airport, historic preservation, insurance, ambulance, URA, museum, theater, Sixth Sense, health insurance, and animal companion.
Just
What's
a couple
important?
Then, huh?
I can tell you that each and every one of the councilors serve on several of the
At least a
committees.
few.
What would be important to you? And I know that was a lot, but did one stand out that?
I think the business and the snow removal would be the two that interest me the most. The museum's pretty far up there. I think that's pretty good one.
You can have snow removal.
Be careful what you ask for.
I'm gonna be honest with you. People down at the brewery found out I was running. They're like, "You gonna do something about that?" You know, I don't know anything right now.
I appreciate that. Councilors, any other?
I have a question.
Councilman Zadi?
Yes, sir.
One, what is the biggest strength you see yourself bringing to enhance council and where we are and how we're made up today?
I think my experience opening Square State is probably my biggest strength I could bring, because doing that while keeping everything on the up and up, that's a lot of filing, a lot of meetings with the engineers and the inspectors. I think the grit you have to do to actually do it all through the proper channels and the determination it takes definitely
You've been
help.
through the whole process of dealing with
From
city
the start to the
departments and
finish.
that,
Everything we built, we had to have inspected before we could skin it. Everything we plumbed, we had to have them inspected before we could put anything through it. There's not a step we took that we didn't get inspected. even before we opened, we had to have Mr. Walmsley here come and make sure we had a fire extinguisher that was up to date.
Was he drinking beer or was he?
Your Honor, it was red and in a can.
Okay, councilors, any other questions for Mr. Hickerson? Hearing none, Larry, I appreciate your interest.
Hey, thank you for listening to me.
Thanks for taking time to answer our questions. And if you could, maybe just wander out to the lobby and call Mr. Green in next.
Sir?
Much appreciated. Ryan, thanks. We appreciate your interest in serving in the Ward 3 vacant seat. And you're going to be given 5 minutes of a presentation, of which afterwards, as I stated, the City Council will ask some questions. Kristen will keep the time. And at that point, do you happen to have a letter for the council at this time? Do you?
No, when we had talked, you said, don't worry about the letter.
Yeah, at that
And
time, the
so
deadline was passed. So
I think there was a little confusion on that, but I do apologize
Okay.
because I was under the impression that when you
Okay.
said, don't worry about the letter, you meant don't worry about the letter.
Yeah, at that point, it was ended. But 5 minutes is yours.
Before we start that, I got a just quick disclaimer. I wrote like a 10-minute speech, so I'm going to do my best to go through it, honor the time.
Okay.
I will honor the 5 minutes, but I out there chopping it up. I was unaware that this was a 5-minute presentation, so I wrote a 10-minute speech. But so anyways, bear with me on this.
Okay.
Okay, members of the council, Mayor Como, good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening and to have this opportunity to make my case for why I'd like to represent Ward 3 and serve with you on this city council. I'd like to begin by saying thank you to Councilwoman Wendorf for her past dedication, passion, and remarkable service to Ward 3 and to this great city for so many years. It is certainly a tall order to fill her shoes, but it's one that I am committed to seeing that great work continues. Many of us believe that we can make a difference, even a small one, that we can have a positive impact in the lives of those we serve, and that we can set an example, especially in these challenging times, of how government can and should work. But we can only accomplish these things if we come together, face our challenges head on, seek data-driven solutions, and above all, roll up our sleeves and do the work that needs to be done. Over the next few minutes, I'll try and answer the questions that you might have for me. Why are you applying? What are your qualifications? Why do you believe you are the best choice to replace Councilwoman Wendorf? These are all the questions I would ask if I was on that side of the room looking this way. They're important questions, especially now when we're living in uncertain times, when business as normal is far from normal, where old thinking and past strategies fall short of the needed solutions. You also know that I have a strong desire to serve. In 2018, you may remember, and Mr. Mayor, I know you do, that I ran for the mayorship of this city and fell short. And prior to that, in 2016, I ran against a now little-known congresswoman named Liz Cheney to represent our state in Congress. And from day one of those races, I made a commitment to myself, my family, and my community that no matter the outcome of those political contests, I was going to always continue to do what I could to help be a part of creating solutions. And that is what brings me before you this evening. We're facing real problems, and we need real solutions. One of my best skills that I believe would benefit the council is my past experience and my current role in process improvement and cost reduction. With the state facing a $1.5 billion budget shortfall and the city looking at a $7 million budget gap, my decade of experience in working with lean methodology can bring new tools and strategies that can help address these problems and minimize the impact of these shortfalls to our community and city. These are proven tools, techniques, and systems, and I know of no other cost-reducing method that has proven results time after time after time. This is where the part where I skip. Now, this is an important point I want to make, and I want to emphasize this. In no way am I suggesting that I have all the solutions or answers to our problems. It's not reasonable, it's not realistic, and it's not responsible. I would be leaning on all of you for guidance and mentorship to learn the processes and get up to speed with the inner workings of our city. But I have a strong work ethic and a desire to build teams. Working with all of you, working with the department heads, city employees, and of course the people who call this place home, I believe there is no doubt that we can find solutions that get us on a path towards a brighter future. In closing, I hope I have conveyed my desire to serve the people of Ward 3. So fellow council members and mayor, as we head into this economic storm, we have an opportunity to show the city and the state what smart government is all about. It's about doing the things that work to move us forward as individuals, as a community, and as a people. At the end of the day, it's about making better choices for better results. Results that make a positive difference in the lives of every individual, in the lives of our kids, and in the life of the common good we serve. We do this by setting clear goals, measuring progress, and getting things done. We start, and we don't stop. We lift up the leaders, and we lead. I simply ask for the opportunity to serve alongside all of you, and I know that we can accomplish great things together. Again, Mr. Mayor and councilors, thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening and make my case for this appointment. I'm not sure if Bruce is here or not, but I'd like to thank him for throwing his hat in the ring. I respect anybody that stands up, and Mr. Hickerson as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Councilors, questions for Mr. Green?
Your Honor,
Councilman West.
same question just to make it fair. I'm curious, tonight before us, we have the proposed budget for our fiscal year 21. Have you looked into that?
I have
Are you
not.
familiar with that?
That would be the first order of business, is to look at the budget, and I would count on your guys' guidance through that process.
It's been a year and a half for me, and I'm still trying to figure it
Yeah.
out, so
Yeah.
it's no easy task. But second question, money constraints aside, do you have any ideas looking into the future for either your individual ward or the city in general that you would like to see accomplished that could benefit the community?
Well, obviously, I mean, the main focus, I would say now, is economics. I mean, I know money aside, but look, we can have whatever vision, but without the money to pay for it, then there's no credibility there. So it would be an effort to really do what we can as a group to tread that water.
That's all I have. Appreciate you throwing your name in the hat
Thank you.
for being here.
Your Honor,
Councilor Halter.
what do you feel is the biggest challenge through the next 6 months? And I know you are running for the seat as well. What do you think your biggest challenge is over the next 4 years, and what is your vision to accomplish that?
Well, I mean, I think it's no secret. You guys know better than I do. You're well aware of the economics that are going on in the state. Just this past, I believe it was on June 2nd, the governor, he had talked about, sent a memo to all the state agencies about future cuts, and that the economic outlook for Wyoming and the cities is very bleak. There was an article come out in the Casper Star just on Sunday, and if all of the employees, in fact, I had that the numbers, but it painted such a dark picture. But if all of the employees through the state, 8,686 of them, were to lose their job overnight, we still would not recoup that or cover the budget deficit that we're in. So obviously, the challenge we have before us is the economics and employment. We see people laying off, heading into more layoffs, and people closing down shop. So economic diversity what can we do to bring jobs? What can we do to create those types of programs here?
Okay,
Okay, my turn.
Councilman Shalata?
Thank you, Ryan, for stepping up for your award. You do have big shoes to fill if you get
Yeah.
the position. Glenise was wonderful. And what I asked was, what's your feelings on the 6 penny tax? And what kind of projects would you be more likely to endorse?
Yeah, I'm not a big tax guy. I wouldn't be in favor of but we've got to look at data-driven solutions, right? I mean, we're not going to get the things that we want in order to beautify the city and put in better infrastructure and things without those types of taxes. So, that's a tough line to carry, because those are decisions that are tough decisions that have to be made based on data. I mean, it's hard to get the city rallied behind a 6 penny that's going to put infrastructure out of the sewer plant when there's no tangible items there, right? But those are the things that we depend on. Those are the services we have to have. So I would take a look at needs versus wants, and then certainly the pulse of the community, and honor that there as well. But those are the solutions and the conversations that we're going to have.
Thank you.
Any other,
Your Honor, yeah.
Councilman Zadi?
Just to ask you that as well, what do you feel is your biggest strength that you could bring to enhance the council and the services and that we provide as a city?
I believe it's my background in cost reduction and process improvement. Lean is a methodology that I've been working in for the past decade. It's a set of principles and tools and techniques that analyze current processes to minimize waste and reduce cost. And 31 states right now use lean methodology. Republican Governor Scott Walker of Wisconsin, he signed an executive order mandating that all local government use lean. The former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, said that just by implementing lean thinking at the federal level, he could balance the budget and reduce the deficit. And so I think those tools and strategies would be beneficial to the council, especially at this current economic time.
Councilors, any other questions? Ryan, I have just a few. As we heard from Mr. Hickerson, being a business owner, do you currently own or operate any businesses?
I do not.
And then the second question would be,
I support him, though. Absolutely.
what, and this might be a run-on from what Councilman Halter said, but what would be your priority number one coming in as a counselor for Ward 3? What do you see that's needed?
The first thing I would have to do is learn the processes. This is where I would look for guidance and mentorship to learn the inner workings of the city and get up to speed. I mean, Glenise, she was great for 12 years, she served our ward fantastic. So I would want to understand the process. Obviously to make those decisions, I would like to have a firm grasp of the entire process.
Okay, and then a second part, and I have to ask, we have several committees and boards that each and every one of these counselors serve on. They do their work. They have meetings depending on what issues it may be. They bring recommendations back to the governing body. I'm going to name these. There's going to be several, but let me know which one stands out to you and which one you would be most likely interested in serving on. We have Parks and Rec. Garbage is a good one. Visual improvements, public safety, water and sewer, fiber optics, snow and weed, municipal court, Christmas, policy, buildings, Chamber of Commerce, legislative, sick leave, airport, historic preservation, insurance, ambulance, URA, museum, theater, 6 Cent Committee, Health Committee, and Animal Companion. Of those committees that I mentioned, what would spark your interest?
I would say definitely the Chamber of Commerce, the URA, six-penny, and garbage to keep that legacy going. And the reason I chose those is because, you know, those are centered around economic development and growth.
Okay, councilors, any other,
I've got a follow-up.
Councilor West?
You can have 6 cent. Are you familiar with where we're at in that process and our efforts to, you know, mitigate it down from 48 million down to the basically 29 million that we're at now and suspending it? And I'm curious if you agreed with that or if you know much about it.
Well, my understanding was that it was completely suspended. It's not?
It is.
It is
I
suspended.
just mean as far as our governing body and the decision that we made.
So is it still active in the county commissioner?
No, the whole thing has been suspended. But
Okay.
just curious if you're familiar with the process we've been going through, what projects that we've approved to this point.
No, not the granular details. No, the overall picture I followed, you know, but not the granular.
That's all I have.
Okay, any other council person questions? Ryan, I thank you for the time and for your interest in serving the seat vacant in Ward 3, and would ask if you would return to the lobby and send Mr. Smith our way, if he is there.
Yeah, I don't think so, but thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. He's probably
Maybe he figured
bolted.
he's the
Well, what I'm thinking is he may have just realized he does not reside in Ward 3 and actually resides in Ward 2. Mr. John Bruce Smith, you're not amongst us here in the chambers, are you? Did anyone see him here? Okay, Your Honor, would you just, you could bring in Ryan and Larry if you would. We'll forego the presentation by Mr. Smith at this time. Kind of odd. So, councilors, at this point, we've heard from 2 of the 3 candidates, and just to reiterate, Mr. Smith is not in attendance, but after looking at his address, I believe Mr. Smith lives in Ward 2, not Ward 3. So maybe he realized that. That being said, council, I'd entertain nominations for a vote for your choice in a candidate to fulfill the Ward 3 seat.
Your Honor,
Councilman Halter?
I believe both candidates did a great job, and I know them both pretty well. And but at this time, I'd like to nominate Ryan Green.
Okay. Councilors, any other nominations?
Your Honor,
Councilman Shalata?
they both did a wonderful job, and I'm going to nominate Larry Hickerson.
Okay. Councilors, we have a nomination for Mr. Hickerson. So we have 2 nominations for the only 2 candidates. And I'm thinking with Glenice's absence, it might take both to fill this seat. But with that, we will now make a vote by secret ballot of your choice for the candidate to fulfill the seat. And pass them to your right, fold them once if you would, pass them to your right and to your left to the center of the bench. Okay, the council president does have the, everybody, got
7, 8.
8? Okay, so as stated, if for some reason we tie this up, we'll take a second vote. If we tie it up again, we'll take a third vote. If nobody changes, we'll move to an alternative method of selecting this seat. Mr. Beckwith?
There is no alternative method.
Just
The
keep
council-
voting
The
until,
council will vote successively until one of the candidates has achieved the majority of the votes. If we're here all night, then so be it.
well, it's been a long day, so I'd rather not be here all night. But Councilman Zadi, or President Zadi will read the votes and we'll tally the votes.
First vote for Ryan Green. Larry Hickerson. Ryan Green. Larry Hickerson. This is looking really good.
It's going to be a long night.
Ryan Green. Larry Hickerson. Ryan Green. Last one is Ryan Green.
Okay, so by my tally, we have a 5-3 vote. Mr. Green will fulfill the seat for the vacant Ward 3 position on the council. Mr. Hickerson, great job. There you are. Great job. And like I said, the upcoming election will then again start. This was a weird situation in Glenice's absence, so she had to resign her position right prior to an election time. But we appreciate both your time to come down, answer question, and your interest. It's somewhat hard to get people to serve, and it's not the most glamorous job in the world. But there's excitement and some fulfillment and self-satisfaction for seeing our city move forward. And therefore, the Honorable Judge Nelson will present the oath of office. Mr. Green, if you would come down to the podium.
Mr. Green, if you please raise your right hand and repeat after me. State your name,
I, Ryan Green,
having been duly appointed as a Rock Springs City Council,
having been duly appointed as a Rock Springs City Council member, solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution, United States, and the state of
I have not knowingly violated any laws related to my appointment,
that I have not knowingly violated any law related to my appointment
caused it to be done by others,
or caused it to be done by others,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with
that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity. Thank you. Thank you all.
Where are you going?
Councilor Green, if you'd take a seat. Let the pressure be on.
Can we do appointments yet?
Huh?
Can we do committee appointments yet?
We're going to do committee appointments right away. I believe Kristen will have a council bench name tag made on your behalf. For the time being, you can share halters. congratulations, and like I said, much appreciated to Mr. Hickerson as well. I believe both great choices, and we look forward to working together and moving our city forward. With that being said, council, we are going to continue to move forward with our agenda. And the next item we will have is our public hearings items, of which we have two. Item number one, the public hearing for a consideration of the City of Rock Springs proposed budget for fiscal year 2020-21, which we will take action under Resolution 2020-94. Is there anyone here tonight wishing to speak on this public hearing? Hearing none. Item number two, we have a public hearing for proposed sewer use fee increase, of which we'll take action under Resolution 2020-95. Is there anyone here tonight wishing to speak on this public hearing?
Question.
Councilman Shalata?
It's a 2% increase, am I correct?
Correct.
And at this time, are we falling short on what we need to, on that increase? Is that, or do we really need to increase it, is my question.
Councilman Shalata, what we're actually doing, this is following suit from the water increase of 1.5% increase, so a 2% is what the city is recommending.
Okay. I'll just-
Yes, Your Honor, Councilor Shalata. We wouldn't ask for an increase if we didn't need it, to be honest with you. We've been short on revenue in the sewer, or in the water reclamation facility department for years. We've been making some operational changes. We have put some projects off and that sort of thing to try to keep the rates down, or our rate request down. But it is needed, and for us to continue to maintain all of our infrastructure and operate the wastewater plant, we need this 2%.
Well, thank you for justifying it.
Your Honor,
Mr. McBurnett.
just to clarify, our water rate increase is 2% to match the sewer increase. The 1.5% is the amount that we're paying the water board,
Right.
essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on our agenda would be the petition section of our agenda. Is there anyone here tonight wishing to address the council on any issue whatsoever? This is your time to do so. Anyone? Hearing none, I'm going to close the petition section of our agenda. We're going to move on to the officers and staff reports. Councilors, item number one, we have the health insurance fund recap for May 2020. And item number two, we have the financial report summary for May of 2020. I'd entertain a motion to approve the officers and staff reports and place on file.
So moved on.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second has been called. Everybody, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. This is going to bring us to the council committee and board reports section. Item number one, the Sweetwater County Travel and Tourism Board proposed budget for fiscal year 2020-21. I would ask at this time, are there any other council committee or board reports requested at this time? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the council committee and board reports and place on file.
So move, Your Honor.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor say aye. Are there any opposed? Okay, this is going to bring us down to the correspondence section of our agenda. Councilors, if you had time to take a look at the 6 items under correspondence, I would ask if there are any questions, and if not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the correspondence and place on file.
So moved, Your Honor.
We do have a motion to approve the correspondence. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? To the bills and claims. Maybe we'll get a phone call in on this one. Item number 1 under bills and claims, the bills and claims for June 16th, 2020. Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilwoman Demas. I almost said Wendell. Demas.
I make a motion to approve the bills and claims for June 16th, 2020.
We do have a motion to approve the bills and claims for June 16th, 2020. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Abstained.
Let the record show. Item number 2, the salaries for June 8th, 2020.
Your Honor,
Councilwoman Demas.
I make a motion to approve the salaries for June 8th, 2020.
Councilors, we do have a motion to approve the salaries for June 8th, 2020. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're going to get into our new business items. Item number 1, the request from the Finance Department for permission to dispose of surplus property, of which you by now have seen the list. Please bid on something. What's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman Shalata?
move to approve the request.
We do have a motion to approve the request from Finance. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second has been called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item number 2 is going to warrant some discussion. We have a request from the Rock Springs Main Street URA to allow open containers during the Main Street Market on the South Main Block from Bank Court to C Street every Thursday from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. beginning on July 9th, 2020 and ending on September 10th, 2020. Now, councilors, most of you have been following the correspondence on this, but I would maybe refer this first off to Councillor Tate. Give us an idea of what's taken place to bring the council up to speed here, and what your thoughts are for the request.
Thank you, Your Honor. I mainly have been working with Chad, so he pretty much knows the communities that offer this and that have these things happening. As far as open container, Rick's been involved in it as well with some of the back and forth we've talked about, but there seems to be a lot of confusion about whether it's a whole downtown area, whether you block off an area. And so instead of going through that whole thing, I think Chad kind of just came up with the idea because it started with a lot of places, if I'm correct, Chad, with their farmers markets, as opposed to, you know, these 3 blocks are open container areas. Lander just passed as of July 4th, their entire town is open container. So we've got so many different things going, we weren't quite sure what happened. I think Casper did 8 blocks in their area or something like that. I don't think it was their whole downtown, but a huge part that they allowed open container, and we've talked about event specific, just open container all the time. And I think until we devolve into all of that and go through everything, we thought we came up with a simple solution of just doing it, starting here and doing it where I think all communities, in fact, they sell it at their farmers market. The URAs or the downtowns do. I don't think it's just necessarily the breweries or something that you would go to. And so we tried to contain it as small until we can finally go through the whole thing. Because it's just, like Rick had pointed out, sometimes our ordinances cover something, but then it might not be what we were discussing back and forth, and it just, we had 5 different ideas and different things going at the same time. So this is why we took it down to this size.
Thank you, Councillor Tate, and Mr. Banks, you might want to come up. And I know there's going to be questions. You might as well just come up. But my biggest concern when this request came forward, it was started out to be a farmer's market, then it started to expand. During that time, we have staff meeting on Thursdays and Mondays prior to any council meeting, and 2 councilors attended, and we had quite the discussion about where this was coming from, what we should do, what would be good, what would be bad. Chief Pacheco was involved, and my biggest concern was this was going to hit us without the other councilmen being aware of what that discussion was, and basically to rehash this discussion and try to get to a happy point, if you would, that we could all live with, that made sense. and we could move forward. So I'm going to turn this over first off to Chief Pacheco. Give us your thoughts, Chief.
Your Honor, City Council, I have several thoughts on this, and I did submit an email to all of you, as well as the URA board. And for your edification, Counselor, since you're new, I'll just kind of briefly go through it. Part of the request for open container requires, in my view, it requires some stipulations. And with this request, it is very broad, and I'm not opposed to the request. I'm just opposed to how it's too broad. It needs to be reeled into a certain location or certain locations, if you will. And I'll expound on that. So in the request, it says that from Bank Court to C Street, the whole area would be open to open container. Open container is not just malt beverages. Our open container ordinance includes liquor as well as malt beverage. So it's beer as well as, you know, whiskeys, wines, all of those types of things. So you essentially open up a floodgate of spirits or libations that you choose to drink. And as was said earlier, there are no specific vendors in that location that are going to serve. So that would, to me, tells me that the people are to bring them to the location. So you're brown bagging it, if you will, to the location of operating location. South Main, during this time period, is a active street, both ways, east-west. It is not closed. The vendors are just set up in the area. So we would have pedestrians, we would have open containers in this area along with traffic. There's also a microbrew there. Square States is in the affected area. And so they would be the only store, if you will, that sells malt or just a microbrew beer in the area. They're not allowed to sell an open container. However, they can sell a growler that is closed container, and then with this, if it were to pass, they could walk out on the sidewalk and then open that container and then consume it in the operating area. Also, nothing would prevent farmers market patrons, which I said, from bringing their own brown bags, and it would actually encourage that with the language of this request. No best practice is mentioned in the request, and everyone on the council knows that I'm a huge, big best practice person when we have community events that involve alcohol, because then you have children, you have those that are under 21, and you have to have controls. I would highly recommend controls so that these family members or children, even kids that are just in the area, not under parental supervision, do not have access to the alcohol, whether it's left there by someone that half consumes a beer and leaves it on the park bench, or actively trying to, or brings their own, or someone sharing it with them. Best practices include ID checks, wristbands, using ID check scanners that we have from prevention that have been donated to the Rock Springs Police Department. We provide those for all events to the public free of charge, and also wristbands, a controlled area, access area for consumption and open container, and then when those patrons leave that area, whether it's flagged off, whether it's stanchioned off, whatever that is, and then they continue on in the event. And that's what I would picture with this type of event. The messaging, in my opinion, to the community is we can't have an event without having alcohol. And the farmer's market, to me, is bread, vegetables, fruits, wares, that type of stuff. It's not a party. It's a family event. And this, to me, will not only open that up to a different crowd, but it also tells the people that are bringing their family there, hey, this is now a different type of event, because now we have alcohol, and a lot of people will now, you may minimize the amount of people that show up because now they're not going to show with their kids because they don't want that type of venue or atmosphere at the farmer's market. I guess one of the main issues that I see with this is just that it's not a controlled request. And if you did have, if you did bring vendors in, for instance, microbrews, the party wagon for Teton or Western Wyoming Beverage, whomever, and maybe even Wind River, Snake River microbrews, they could also extend out a certain area for serving and consuming, and then the patrons could move on to wherever they wanted to go. But it would still be a controlled atmosphere. Square States could extend their area out, and that's what that's my proposal is if they're going to extend that out and then have the area where they want to expand their area, because I understand that's their busiest day. That would be wonderful, but it still, once again, limits the crowd that's under 21 from being in that atmosphere. So, or in that little cordon area. So with that, if anybody has any questions, I would obviously answer them.
I have a question.
Councilman Shalata.
So you're basically opposed to this, obviously.
As written, Councilor Shalata, absolutely yes, I am opposed.
And that's just because of the way the family event that the farmers market has been in the past. I would ask Mr. Banks if you could come up with any better ideas on how we could handle this. Personally, this is my personal belief that the farmers market's been very, very good for Rock Springs downtown the way it is. And I don't know how alcohol would make it better. Could you help expand on that, please?
Sure. So part of our mission, obviously, is to make downtown more vibrant, more lively, and to bring more events and activities and people downtown. And that's why we do the farmers market. It is, frankly, a loss for us. It's a loss for the city. We don't make any money at that event. So how this started actually was not at all with farmers market, but open container in general communities, how Casper is doing it on a much larger scale. And then we scaled back to doing it event specific, and we thought we would test it at the farmers market. And so I reached out to other folks that I know that do farmers market. The Park City Market, which is in Park City, allows the same thing. Laramie does that. Those two do sell their own liquor, and that's how they pay for, you know, their operations. They have a beer wagon, or they have cocktails and they sell it. We're not proposing to do that. So that's where there were no real restrictions on our part as far as how we're going to ID people that get into there, and so forth. And then just yesterday, as we were discussing this, Lander, it popped up on my newsfeed, Lander had approved a citywide, on the 4th of July, a citywide open container permit. And if you search, there are lots of places that do this in their districts, in their downtown districts, so that you can go, let's say, from Sidekicks, where you might want a glass of wine, to Square State, where you might want a glass of beer, notwithstanding what we're doing here. And so the whole idea was just to enhance the whole experience, encourage people to stay a little longer. Perhaps if they stay longer, then they will grab some dinner at Bitter Creek or at Broadway Burger, and not just come down, grab their peaches, and go home. Which is one of the tricks for us, is how do we get them to stay a little longer and spend money with the merchants that are downtown, that are the people that we serve.
That's your job, and I commend you for it.
Thank you.
But I still have an issue with having families coming down there, and the way Rock Springs is set up, and you know this, Chad, we've got the railroad tracks coming right through, and then you got South Main, and you got North Front, and you've got numerous locations on North Front that have bars and things, and these people can come and go as they please down through there. There'll probably be a bigger police presence with the alcohol on South Main if it was to be passed. So I'm not sure how
And
that
let
would
me
be
add
addressed.
one, I should have said this before we started any of this. Square State obviously is the person that would probably benefit the most. I should say I'm not speaking on their behalf. We didn't approach them about this. This was not their idea, so I don't want to get them sort of lumped into something that could cause problems. This was not on their radar. They didn't ask us to do this on their behalf, so I just wanted to throw that out there before we get
Well, thank you, Chad.
too far down the road.
Councillors,
Your Honor.
Councilman Zadi?
Curious, the other communities have done this through farmers markets and that, and do you know or have any information on how open container has affected participation in these events?
Laramie's Farmers Market is huge. It's also on a Friday night. I mean, it's a little tough to compare, but it's a Friday night. They have several stages. They have open containers. So it is more of a street fair, street festival than what we have currently. Frankly, we do need to do something to ours to reinvent it. And this is maybe one step in that direction, but it certainly won't be anything that happens this year. So they're all much bigger than what we are at the moment. So it's a little hard to compare those with ours. Pinedale has open container, but they're very small. I don't know that I have a really great comparison. Evanston has open container allowed in their whole depot square 24/7, 365, and that's where their farmers market is. But I think that was there before the farmers market was there.
It's just, I'm curious because, well, one thing I get frustrated with is just because I want to have a beer, it means that all of a sudden it's not a family event. I don't agree with that. If I want to enjoy a beer with my family and my kids, that's the way it is. That's what I want to do, and I think I should be able to do that and not be labeled an unfair or an unfamily event. I just don't agree with that concept. Two, we're adults, and we can be treated like adults and have a beverage that we want to have in an area, like we're saying, on the street there for a limited amount of time. And I don't see at a farmer's market the demographics changing drastically from what we currently have to all of a sudden 21-year-olds who just want to go out and drink and party. And I don't see this as really turning into a party just because we add beer or wine or whatever to it. I think those are kind of extreme ideas that were going to happen, and seeing people with kegs or coolers coming to this event, I don't see tailgate parties and that happening either. I mean, I think we're taking a lot of guesses here and making a lot of assumptions that we don't know, and I would be in support of approving this, and even on a trial basis, we do it for this year, and if we do see things getting out of control, we see something happening we don't like, we as a council can always come back and say, no, we're not doing this. But to flat out deny it based off of assumptions that we have no idea will happen, I'm for trying something new and trying to do things differently and helping to invigorate the downtown and keeping people there. I know that's a problem with farmers market. You're going to go there, you're going to buy what you want, you're going to go, leave. There's a way to keep people down there maybe a little bit longer, make it more of a social event, and I think that's kind of a neat idea. So.
And we certainly don't want to have people bring in kegs of beer. I mean, that's not what we want either, and we would certainly look to pull that right away if that were the case.
And now, you also say in here that you anticipate adding live music each week. Now, what kind of music? I mean,
if you've ever been to our brown bag lunches, which are now they'll be at the Health and Human Service building, but it's one or two. With no disrespect to Zam Trip, it's not Zam Trip. Mm-hmm. It is one or two acoustic performers. It's Stephen Davis, who I know is sort of plays all the time. We were also in communication with talking with several of the dance groups to see if some of the family groups with the little kids would like to come and perform. The difference we have this year, since we had to move that pergola out of Bank Court, it's now sits where we can utilize it. We haven't had a space to do that before, so we have done it before in Bank Court, and it just doesn't work. It's as silly as it sounds, it's too far disconnected from the vendors across the street. So now we have an opportunity to add a little bit more in there. So that's the kind of bands that we're looking at, or not bands, one or two singers.
One thing I can see is a possible concern is the music, is certain types of music and genres of music attract certain people, certain attitudes, certain behaviors, and that's something we'd want to avoid as best we can, I guess, in that situation. Thank you.
Councillor Zadi, what I'd also add, though, and I believe your time says from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Right.
because what we wouldn't want to see is all of a sudden it was, 10 p.m., the band's still playing and people are wandering around and getting drunk, and we turn it into a
Well, and frankly,
concert.
I don't want to be there that late
Right.
either.
So I understand both sides, and I surely respect Chief Pacheco has a job here, but I want to make sure that everybody's clear here. There's this request, and then there's a suggestion through Chief Pacheco that if this was going to be on a trial basis, that individual businesses, whether they're vendors during the farmers market or Square State, would make that request also to extend their serving area, correct? That's what you're envisioning.
Your Honor, my vision is not to have a no-holds-barred location opened with no controls. And Councilor Zadi, I would have to ask you, I think if you have a band and you have open containers, isn't that definition of a party? I mean, that's what this is. And I would ask or request from each of you that you put some controls under this if you're going to pass it, because right now it's no holds barred. And you may not envision that, Chad, that people are going to bring coolers of beer, but there's nothing to prevent that. And my guys come in with this language, there's nothing we can do.
Mayor, Council, can I address the chief's
Please.
concern and maybe help the council out with a little bit of reminding about what our ordinance with respect to what we're talking about here in terms of blocking off the street and limiting an area. Our ordinance, which prohibits drinking alcoholic beverages on the streets, states as follows: notwithstanding the provisions of subsection A above, drinking of malt beverages or intoxicating liquor upon the streets, sidewalks, alleys, parking lots, or other public places within the city of Rock Springs may be permitted by the governing body for a specified period of time if the following conditions are met. A, the public area upon which drinking of malt beverages or intoxicating liquors is to be permitted must be enclosed, blocked off, or cordoned off in a manner that is acceptable to the chief of police and the fire chief. B, the dates and hours during which drinking of malt beverages or intoxicating liquors in the designated areas are accepted by the governing body and the chief of police. And C, such other conditions as the governing body deems to be necessary and appropriate under the circumstances. So I think that the ordinance certainly gives the chief a lot of authority, but it also gives the council a lot of authority in terms of the kinds of restrictions you can put on it in order to make yourselves feel a little bit more comfortable. So I just wanted to point that out to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Beckwith. I just want to reiterate again, Mr. Banks, the goal, the original request, Councilman Tate, was this wouldn't satisfy what you're looking for by having an extended serving area from a local brewery where only individuals from 21 would be allowed, and then therefore no one would be able to wander up and down the street with an open container, from what I gather. And that being said, therefore, what's the answer? Is there, as Councilman Shalata said, is there a happy medium somewhere that the chief is acceptable with, the city council is acceptable with? And I just don't want to rush through this until everybody knows that we're all on the same page here. And should we approve this, what it's going to mean, and should we disapprove this, what it's going to mean? So does that satisfy your needs? Another question, hold that thought.
Okay.
Is there a chance in the farmer's market that there would be a microbrewery invited to participate?
Matt might have better information about this, what the laws are. Last year, we approached Cowboys Distilling to come down to see if they were interested. And they weren't at that time. I don't know if they would be. We have not asked them this year to do sampling and sales, but I don't know what kind of permit would be. That would not be permissible under the open container.
Your Honor, they would require a malt beverage permit.
Right.
and
That's
that
right.
would have to be approved separately
So
through the
my
governing
biggest
body.
concern is, do we ruffle feathers with other local vendors in the downtown when we have farmers market on South Main? We have one brewer down there, and who I believe even you had mentioned makes sense that it would benefit them immensely. Do we ruffle feathers from other locals who may not have that location opportunity?
Well, I will tell you, we are challenged with that often.
Yeah.
The car show, for instance, when it's on South Main, the North Front businesses always ask why it's not on North Front. The businesses on Pilot Butte always want, so that's always a challenge that we face, frankly.
Right.
Because of the way our downtown is set up, because of the railroad tracks, that's always a challenge.
Council, and I would just remind you that we do have one more meeting before the July 9th scheduled event date. We have a June,
Correct.
or is it the 7th? July 7th, we have a meeting? Does that make sense? Yeah, we'd have a meeting before that. Is there any other discussion, or the question's been called? What's your pleasure?
Just a quick question for Rick. What ordinance did you read? What is that?
The first one that I was reading from was ordinance 3237, and that is our ordinance prohibiting the drinking of alcoholic beverages on streets. So that ordinance basically allows the city council to say, we're gonna go ahead and waive the open container ordinance for a specific location for a specific period of time. Again, so long as, according to the ordinance, the fire chief and the police chief are okay with that. There's also the malt beverage permits that we were talking about. And what I envision is the possibility of perhaps a combination of the malt beverage permit, perhaps the Square State or someone extending their area out, and also perhaps combining that with something under 3237. But under the 24-hour malt beverage permits authorizing the sale of malt beverages only may be issued by the city to any responsible person or organization for sales at a picnic, bazaar, fair, rodeo, special holiday, or similar public gathering. No person or organization holding the permit shall sell any alcoholic liquor other than malt beverages on the premises described on the permit, nor shall any malt beverage be sold or consumed off the premises authorized by the permit. The holder of a microbrewery permit under section 10108 may also hold a malt beverage permit under this section for the purpose of selling its own brewed malt beverages. So, using the combination of those two ordinances, you may be able to come up with something. I'm not, but I do think that whatever is arrived at probably has to, again, according to the ordinance, be okay with the chief of police and the fire chief.
Mr. Beckwith, if I could also, first off, I don't support the idea of, and I think we've already discussed that, hopefully we're through that, of opening up the whole downtown for the entire summer like some communities have done. I just think after thinking about what that would do and how that would be to control through the PD and the city itself, that just it should be event specific. That being said, the ordinance does, as we discussed, allow some opportunity to craft, interject language that could be used to limit individuals from bringing liquor, packaged liquor, maybe the amount of, maybe it's 32 ounces, something like that.
Your Honor, if
Mr.
I may,
Beckwith.
I think you're exactly right about that, and I think that was, I was hoping that you would reach that conclusion. We can place all kinds of if we want
Right.
to say that it's open container, but only for malt beverages. You can't bring a bottle of Jack Daniels out
Right.
here, and start passing out drinks. You can certainly limit that. It's up to the
Yes.
council to do that.
Yeah.
But again, it's got to be okay with the chief.
That being said, not to beat a dead horse, Chief, what kind of language would you like to see if the council so chooses to move forward with this on a trial basis? What language would you recommend that the council consider?
Your Honor and councilors, the only language I would like to see is best practices and utilizing some of the best practice in this event. And once again, this is, there's a safety issue here. There's an active roadway that's moving both ways during this event. And safety is my primary concern. I did talk about, you know, what is the vision, what does this do, what's the perception, all of those things. But be that as it may, if someone's walking across that street and gets hit and they're intoxicated, it's not going to be a good thing. And if you're talking about other venues, I would think that area's cordoned off, Chad, or I don't know, but you know, and we had talked about that as well. You know, if you have it closed from C Street to Bank Court, you know, that eliminates the winery here that because they were just outside of it, you know. So but if you had that cordoned off, well, then you lose your parking spots. And Chad and I talked about that earlier today. So that's really not an option for them. So there's a lot of different moving parts here.
There, no good deed goes unpunished.
Right. So my big thing is safety and utilizing best practices, which is utilizing the scanners and those types of things, just minimizing the opportunity for a person that's under 21 to get a hold of the alcohol. I'm good. I'm not a teetotaler. I understand, and I understand bringing if it's going to raise the amount of people that are coming in. Wonderful. I mean, that's a great thing. Thursdays, I can have. That's my training day, so I have all of my cops working that day. So we're not going to have a manpower problem on Thursdays. Okay, so that's not an issue.
That being said, Chad, just thinking about how the layout is, if Square State was to extend their serving area, we would block off one lane.
Or you could just block off their parking spaces.
Right. Just the parking spaces.
The parking spaces in front of theirs.
Just the spaces, gotcha.
Yeah, doesn't that defeat the purpose of this, though? I mean, it is to walk around and visit the vendors. And, you know, we talk about cordoning it off in busy streets, and yeah, I get it, but that street really, how busy is it? 1, 2, Casper, they're opening up their downtown, Lander's opening up their hotel, and they're not cordoning anything off. Again, we gotta let people do their thing and be adults, and hopefully they'll do the right thing. And to say that the hands of the police are tied, they're not. In my opinion, you can still observe, and if you see somebody overly or intoxicated as you do any other day of the week, stop them. You see somebody who's underage, you can card them, stop them. You know, the best practices as far as selling, if they're buying at Square State or they go to Bitter Creek and buy a growler, we're relying upon them, and it's a condition of their license that they're carding people and making sure they're not over-serving and everything else. So in that regard, you're getting professional services, professional people selling this rather than volunteers maybe working to sell malt beverage permits that haven't gone through tips training or haven't done this but maybe a couple times a year and don't know the signs of an intoxicated person or how if you're overselling or not overselling. So I think some of that stuff's already kind of in place, I guess.
Your Honor.
I would agree with Councilman Schlada.
I would be willing to table this request until we could get a little bit more information and get everybody to find a compromise that would fit the event. I'm not totally against having people have fun and enjoy the event, but I'd like to have it safe. And obviously, there's some concern by the police chief, and I agree with Councilman Zotti that there comes a time you have to be treated like an adult and handle the situation and act like one. And so that's my stance on this.
Your Honor.
Councilman West.
So, as Billy mentioned, I mean, we do have another meeting. I think the request is from July 9th to September 10th, so we could still pull it off, but that doesn't give, a whole lot of notice. But I did attend that staff meeting yesterday, and what if we tried just a 2-week trial run and limited it to malt beverage? And I'm asking both Chief Pacheco and Chad. If we approved that amendment tonight, then that would give you July 9th and July 16th for your 2-week trial. We would then have a meeting on July 21st where we could either choose to forego it or extend it. Is that something that would be amenable to everyone, or does everyone feel like it needs to be tabled and drag it out longer? I mean, I'm sure you're trying to recruit people to come down here and that type of thing. So curious on both your
Councilor,
thoughts.
I was going to ask if we could amend our request just to those 2 weeks as a test, and then see what happens. Because then you meet on the 21st.
Yep.
And our next thing would be the 23rd. So that would give us a 2-week test run. And we're not going to, it's not going to be on the posters, bring your beer. It's going to be subtly, I don't know that we'll promote that per se at all, other than, just in word of mouth, more or less. So we would certainly be amenable to that.
And as far as the malt beverage, are you good with just that rather than just a general?
I think it's a good place to start for sure, yeah.
Just food for thought, and not to wreck this train by any means. Some earlier discussion that we had until I had some discussion with Mr. Kausich. My biggest concern during the farmer's market, and we looked for different ways to set up, and we had all that discussion and putting people on the south side and running power here and doing this, and how do we meet the criteria. I think it's somewhat of a safety issue having those the street open, because you have a lot of the trailers set up and people walking up and down. And my biggest fear, I always feared, was a kid darting out in between the trailers. And but then again, no good deed goes unpunished, because we immediately get feedback from the local merchants downtown that we've blocked the road. No one can get in, and so there's no good deed that goes unpunished. But I surely support Councilman Shalata and Councilman West's thoughts, and maybe hashing out some language that everybody could work with, that the chief is acceptable with. Run it through a trial period. See, it only takes one bad apple, and we know how that works, and hopefully that doesn't happen. But I understand what the goal is. I support Chief Pacheco and his work to keep our community safe, but I think we can find a happy medium here somewhere. If somebody wants to make a recommendation in the form of a motion to run it up for 2 weeks with the contingency that it just include malt beverage, Chief Pacheco, if you want to throw some language out there, fine with that. We can hash this out tonight, or we can table it and bring it back at the next meeting once we have time to have some correspondence back and forth, and bring back a document that incorporates all of our comments that everybody can live. Council?
Your Honor,
Councilman West.
I would move to amend the request from the Rock Springs Main Street URA to allow malt beverage open containers during the Main Street Market on the South Main Block from Bank Court to C Street every Thursday from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. beginning on July 9th and ending on July 16th, 2020.
I'll second that motion. That request.
Councilor West, could you just reiterate, did the fact that you add the language in there for malt beverage only?
I did.
Okay.
Yep.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Your Honor.
Councilman Savage.
So the idea is to remove open container and replace it with malt beverage, is that correct?
Well, it would be an open container of only malt beverage.
Only malt beverage, I see. Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we got a second and by discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye. No.
Opposed?
Yes.
Okay, let the record show. We'll do this on a trial basis. Malt beverage only. And from the dates beginning July 9th and ending July 16th, correct?
Correct.
We'll,
Your Honor,
Councilman Halter?
just point of clarification, was that just an amendment, or did we actually vote on it?
We voted on it.
Okay, just making sure.
Voted on the amended request.
Amended request.
Yeah, I suppose technically we should have amended it and then voted on it, right?
I did amend it.
He did amend it.
West did.
Well,
No, I didn't.
I think that he made a motion to amend the resolution and,
You're
and to-
probably correct. Let's go back. Councilman Halter always causes these problems.
I'm sorry.
Councillor West did make a motion on the amendment. We got ahead of ourselves. So the amendment would read, request from the Rock Springs Main Street URA to allow open containers of malt beverages during the Main Street Market on the South Main Block from Bank Court to C Street every Thursday from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., beginning on July 9th and ending on July 16th. We did have a second on the amendment. All in favor on the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, now, therefore, we have the request itself. The request from the Rock Springs Main Street URA to allow open containers of malt beverage only during the Main Street Market on the South Main Block from Bank Court to C Street every Thursday from 4 p.m. to 7, beginning on July 9th and ending on July 16th. Councilman, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman West?
move to approve this request.
We do have a motion to approve this request. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed? No.
Thank you, Councilman Halter. You were exactly correct. With that, we're going to move on to item number 3. And we have a request from the Sweetwater Dirt Racing Alliance for 2 malt beverage permits for the Sweetwater Speedway races on July 3rd and 4th, 2020 from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. at the Sweetwater Speedway. Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman West?
move to approve this request.
We do have a motion to approve this request. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Councilor Green, are you ready to quit yet? Item number 4, request from Lou's Incorporated for permission to transfer their liquor license to Green River to cater the Mandy Brink and Nathan Campos wedding reception on June 20th, 2020 from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. at the Green River Stratton Myers Park, which must be approved by the Green River City Council. Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman Shalata.
move to approve this request.
We have a motion to honor this request. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's going to bring us to item number 5, the request from Lynn Pie Incorporated, doing business as Bomber Sports Bar, to extend their serving area for the Kick Stands Up for Summer charity event on July 11th, 2020 from 1 p.m. to 11 p.m. Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman West?
move to approve this request.
We do have a motion to honor this request. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And item number 6, the request from Lynn Pie Incorporated, doing business as Bomber Sports Bar, to extend their serving area for an outside event on August 15th, 2020 from 1 p.m. to 11 p.m. Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman Shalata.
move to approve this request.
We do have a motion to approve this request. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this is going to move us on to the resolution section of our agenda. The first 2 items we have from the Housing Authority. Item number 1, Resolution 2020-92.
A resolution authorizing and directing Timothy A. Como, acting in his capacity as chairman of the Housing Board, to discharge uncollectible debts for the Rock Springs Housing Authority's project number WY006P003.
Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman Shalata?
move to approve Resolution 2020-92.
We do have a motion to approve Resolution 2020-92. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. Roll call.
Councilor West?
Yes.
Zadi?
Yes.
Shalata?
Yes.
Savage?
Yes.
Demus?
Yes.
Tate?
Yes.
Green?
Yes.
Halter?
Yes.
Mayor Como?
Yes. I hate that one for some reason. It just burns my...
It's a lot of money.
Item number 2.
Clarify that, though. When we do that, it does allow us to go to collections. and go through that
Your Honor,
process
yes, that's
accordingly.
the truth, and if we
Yeah.
don't write off old debts after a while, we get dinged by HUD for not writing them off after a certain amount of time, so in a roundabout way, it kind of costs you money to not
It's
do it.
it's a lose-lose
Yep.
How do you get on
situation.
that list?
It's a best accounting
Yeah.
practice, I guess you would say.
Exactly. Item number 2, from the Housing Authority, Resolution 2020-93.
A resolution authorizing Timothy A. Como acting in his capacity as chairman of the Rock Springs Housing Board to approve a PIC management agreement and work authorization with Tin Mass Software and MRI Software LLC Company.
Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman West?
move to approve Resolution 2020-93.
Council, we do have a motion to approve Resolution 2020-93. Do we have a second?
Second,
Second's been called. Roll call.
Councilor Zadi,
yes.
Shalata,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Demus,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. Item number 3, Resolution 2020-94.
A resolution authorizing and directing Timothy A. Como as mayor of the city of Rock Springs, Wyoming, and Matthew L. McBurnett as city clerk of the city of Rock Springs, Wyoming, to accept and approve a budget submitted for the city of Rock Springs for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021.
Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman Zadi?
got some changes. No.
Yeah, you got a minute?
Want to add $1 million bucks?
I'd like to move to approve that budget submitted to the city of Rock Springs.
I almost threw up in my mouth. Council, we do have a motion to approve Resolution 2020-94. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. Roll call.
Councilor Shalata,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Demus,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes, and I would just have to reiterate, Matt, Alex, your office, the committee, President Zadi and Councilman West, we've come a long way, and this city council meeting with each and every one of the outside entities, the departments, and especially those departments that were to get us where we are. It's been a long haul. It's been an unprecedented year, and I don't even think this budget year is the one we're going to have to worry about. I think next fiscal year is going to be something to watch. So with that, I believe we have a motion, a second, and we did the roll call, and we're good to go. Item number 4, Resolution 2020-95.
A resolution setting the sewer rate for the period beginning July 1st, 2020.
Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman West?
move to approve Resolution 2020-95.
We do have a motion to approve Resolution 2020-95. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. Roll call.
Councilor Savage,
Yes.
Demus,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Shalata,
Kind of smells, but yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. Speaking of what doesn't smell, and
Don't curse
knock
out.
on wood, Paul, I'd have to commend your crew at the plant. Much better process. I know every once in a while a very faint amount of smell, but much better. I don't know what, other than getting in there early and using the drying slabs to dry out, but the situation this year has been much easier to handle. So thank you very much. Tell your staff, Nick and the group, thank you.
I will do that, thank you.
I have not received a phone call this year, which is,
I was wondering if you got some of those 6-cent scrubbers or
It-
something.
if we, maybe we've have it processed and we can take that off our list and add that somewhere else. I don't know, but just fantastic. That also being said, not to deviate, Paul's crew has added a second lane for RV dumping. So that was a big pet peeve of mine. They got on it. from going out there and moving that station to the outside. Now that we have two stations side by side that you can go empty your RV and not have to wait in line at least 50% less of the time. So thank you, Paul. And I think there's still going to be some, as we have time, some paving work and stuff there, but much appreciated. Item number 5, Resolution 2020-96.
A resolution authorizing Matthew L. McBurnett, the city clerk of the city of Rock Springs, to certify to the county commissioners of Sweetwater County through the county clerk the levies to be made for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021.
Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman West.
move to approve Resolution 2020-96.
We do have a motion to approve Resolution 2020-96. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. Roll call.
Councilor Demus,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Shalata,
Yes.
Savage.
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. Item number 6, Resolution 2020-97.
A resolution amending and reenacting Resolution 8825, which declares the intention of the City Council of the City of Rock Springs, Wyoming, to establish water rates in said city.
Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor, I'd move to approve Resolution 2020-97.
We do have a motion to approve Resolution 2020-97. Do we have a second?
Second.
We do have a second. Roll call.
Councilor Tate,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Shalata,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Demus,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. Item number 7, Resolution 2020-98.
A resolution establishing a pay plan and insurance benefits for department heads and non-bargaining unit employees of the City of Rock Springs, and authorizing Timothy A. Como as mayor of the City of Rock Springs and Matthew L. McBurnett as city clerk for the City of Rock Springs to implement said pay plan and insurance benefits for the 2020-2021 fiscal year.
Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman Halter.
move to approve 2020-98.
We do have a motion to approve Resolution 2020-98. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. Roll call.
Councilor Green,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Shalata,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Demus,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. Item number 8, Resolution 2020-99.
A resolution accepting and approving an employee assistance program agreement between Jerry Post, PSYD, PC, and the City of Rock Springs, Wyoming, and authorizing Timothy A. Como as mayor of the City of Rock Springs, Wyoming, and Matthew L. McBurnett as city clerk of the City of Rock Springs to execute said agreement on behalf of the city.
Question.
Question, Councilman Shalata.
How much of this is this a retainer for him then to provide those services? And how much was used last year? Do you have any idea?
Mr. Pacheco, do you have an idea what we used last year?
And are we considered city employees?
No, but I can tell you that it's been a very worthwhile program. I'm not quite sure what we've used to date. If you were Chief Walmsley, Matt, do you know?
6,000.
Yeah.
Your
Oh,
Honor.
boy.
Well, I just want to know.
Matt?
Okay.
There's been 15 appointments.
How many?
15 appointments.
Oh, okay. It's been utilized pretty
Employees
well.
Oh, 50 employees, I'm sorry.
50
yeah.
employees.
Yes.
1-5, not 5-0. 1-5.
And, Your Honor, in the resolution, or in the contract, it does state covered persons are entitled to up to 3 sessions per year at the expense of the referral service.
Correct.
Household members of covered persons are entitled to 3 sessions per year at the expense of the agency.
Correct.
Okay, I'm good.
Yeah, it's very worthwhile and basically just a continuation. This is not a new contract. Any other questions? Did we get a
No.
motion?
No.
What's your pleasure?
Your Honor.
Councilman Shalata?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2020-99.
Council, we do have a motion to approve Resolution 2020-99. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. Roll call.
Counselor Halter,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Shalata,
Yes.
Savage.
Yes.
Demus,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. And item number 9, Resolution 2020-100.
A resolution accepting and approving a grant award agreement between Wyoming Office of Homeland Security and City of Rock Springs, and authorizing Timothy A. Como as mayor of the City of Rock Springs, Wyoming, and Matthew L. McBurnett as city clerk of the City of Rock Springs to execute said grant award on behalf of said city.
Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman Halter?
move to approve 2020-100.
We do have a motion to approve Resolution 2020-100. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. Roll call.
Counselor West,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Shalata,
Yes.
Savage.
Yes.
Demus,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. Council, at this time, I would entertain a motion to recess into an executive session to discuss litigation. We do have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will recess.